Penn State men's hockey is starting to live up to that NCAA tournament potential.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to Penn State men's hockey. I'm your host of Locked On Nittany Lions, Zach Seyko. He is Eric Ohlsen, Penn State men's hockey color commentator, also does play-by-play as fill-in, just part of the Penn State men's hockey broadcast team. So, Eric, we are going to make sense of this run because Penn State men's hockey, Guy Gadowski's Nittany Lions are starting to get hot, picking up a shootout win, for example, over the likes of Michigan State. This recent run where they took one from Michigan and then swept Wisconsin on the road. And these are some highly ranked teams in the Pairwise, of course, what they did at home against Ohio State. But the question everybody wants to know, are they going to make the NCAA tournament? How close are they? And then we'll make sense of this recent hot streak that they're on. So, Eric, how close are they to pushing themselves into the NCAA tournament, because they look like an NCAA tournament team as of late?
They're very close. I mean, they are arguably the hottest team in the country right now, and for good reason, because they've earned those results. It's still a hill to climb. They're certainly by no means are they a lock, is anything guaranteed, and no one in the team is looking at it that way either. Just because they're on a great streak like this right now does not mean the job is over. So there's two paths to making the tournament. The easiest one is go win your conference tournament. Easier said than done in the Big Ten, though, because the Big Ten is the best conference in college hockey, without a doubt. You have now 5 teams that are really vying for the tournament. I think Wisconsin is going to drop off here, so they won't be in the mix. Notre Dame is well out of the mix. And then that leaves Penn State trying to make it as a bubble team. Michigan, who is right on the bubble right now as well. And then you have Ohio State, Minnesota, and Michigan State that are probably locks in the tournament right now. So, you win your conference tournament to get an automatic qualifier. There's 6 conferences, so that's 6 bids. And then all of a sudden, there's only 10 at-large spots available. And there's a lot of good teams in the country right now. A lot of Hockey East teams are in the top 16. So you start really looking at the pairwise right now and see kind of what the path is. But still a lot of hockey to go. 6 regular season games left for this Penn State team, 4 of which will be at home, which I know they're very excited about after winning 3 of the last 4 on the road, coming off that sweep against Wisconsin. So Penn State's 16th in the pairwise right now. So people might be saying, oh, they're in the tournament. Not this year, because 16 isn't going to cut it. We're probably looking at a minimum, having to be in the top 14. Okay. Potentially, you have to be 13th. It kind of depends on how the conferences shake out. We know Atlantic hockey is going to steal an automatic qualifier spot, because no team in the Atlantic is in the top 16 right now and probably doesn't have a chance of cracking the top 16 before the tournament starts. So there goes one spot. Potentially a spot from CCHA goes away because they're on the outside looking in as well. And then you're looking at the ECAC. Quinnipiac is right now in the top 16. That's a team that Penn State played back in October on the road and lost 3-2. So you're hoping right now that Quinnipiac stays in that top 15, wins the ECAC tournament, so that way a spot isn't stolen from the at-large bids. But that's the nature of the tournament. You never know. One year, just being 16th could get you in, and the next year, you got to be 13th to get in. So that's kind of where they're at right now.
This schedule, the final 6 games, as you mentioned, and I'm glad you brought up that they're 16th in the pairwise. So they are a bubble team, and they could get in as an at-large. But yes, winning the Big Ten tournament certainly helps. So let's put it into perspective, right? To what does the blueprint look like? Notre Dame, they need to sweep Notre Dame. I really don't think there's any excuses here if they drop one at home to Notre Dame over the course of this upcoming weekend. They have the 2-game series, but then it does not get easy. You go on the road to Michigan State, who's once upon a time number 1. Now they're number 2 in the pairwise. So there's really not that much margin of error there against the Spartans. And then Minnesota, and they're also at the top of the Big Ten standings. And then second place in the Big Ten standings, Minnesota. Oh, and go figure, they're number 3 in the country in the Pairwise rankings. So before the Big Ten tournament, what kind of gives Penn State a little more reassurance? They have to take both against Notre Dame. Do they have to go 1-1 against both opponents? Can they afford to be swept against the likes of Michigan State or Minnesota? What's kind of the most ideal but realistic scenario for Penn State to continue to pad its resume?
Yeah, it's kind of tough to say right now.
Okay.
Because the pairwise is stacked a little bit differently depending on whether you're home or on the road. So you get rewarded more for winning on the road than you do at home when it comes to the mathematical equation. So you all know, kind of the mantra in the Big Ten is sweep at home and split on the road, right? It's really hard to win on the road in the Big Ten, especially to sweep. So the fact that they were able to do that against Wisconsin is huge. Now at home against Notre Dame, who is in the 40s in the pairwise right now, yes, you really need to sweep them. But is it possible that, if you do lose one, is your season over? No, it's not, because you're guaranteed after this weekend another 6 hockey games, because the first round of the Big Ten tournament is a best of 3. So at minimum, you'll have 6 games left to make a difference in your rankings. So, but if they do find a way to sweep Notre Dame, which is not going to be easy by any stretch, Notre Dame has
I don't think so.
They've been the kryptonite since Notre Dame joined the Big Ten. So, and this is still a decent hockey team. It's Jeff Jackson's last year coaching the Irish. He's a storied head coach, has had an outstanding career. So they're playing for pride right now, and they're trying to play their best hockey down the stretch going into the tournament too, because they're probably going to be locked into 7th unless something really crazy happens. But I don't see them catching Penn State unless they sweep Penn State this weekend. So they're, a lot of these teams, you're just trying to play your best hockey down the stretch. And Notre Dame's certainly trying to do that. They have 4 or 5 multi or 10-digit goal scorers. I should say double-digit goal scorers, not 10-digit goal scorers. So they have some guys that can put the puck in the net. It's not going to be an easy weekend by any means. But if you find a way to sweep Notre Dame, then realistically you're looking at, if you go 1-1 against Michigan State on the road, a road win over the number 2 pairwise team in the country is going to be massive. And then coming back home, if you can take one off Minnesota, that's going to really give them a boost as well, going into the first round of the Big Ten tournament. So that's kind of the path I see right now. They're just focused on Friday night against Notre Dame, I can tell you that. But big picture, if you can sweep Notre Dame, or at least not lose in regulation, if you lose in overtime, it counts less, than a regulation loss. So that hurts you less. If you end in a tie and go to a shootout, it goes down as a tie in the pairwise. So, they can make up a lot of ground having Michigan State and Minnesota still left. And then, you're guaranteed 2 games at least against potentially the likes of a Michigan or an Ohio State, who will probably be still top 15 in the pairwise. So, I think we're still looking at Penn State needing to win the first round of the Big Ten tournament to get in, unless they sweep Michigan State and sweep Minnesota, and then they could find themselves maybe in a safe spot if they lose in the first round. But I think that's kind of where we're at right now.
Coming up after the break, Penn State peaking at the right time. Like you said, Eric, one of the hottest teams in the country. Now let's make sense of it. Aiden Fink, one of the team's leading goal scorer, and then Arsenii Sergeev back in front of the net, picking up slack on the defensive side. How did it happen? How did Penn State go from a team that had a lot of question marks to a team that is starting to put it all together? We'll tell you more after this. And today's episode is brought to you by Wayfair. After the holiday hustle, and I know the holidays seem like they were a long time ago, but there is nothing like giving your home a little TLC. You can find that decluttering and refreshing your space will help you get back into your routine. Whether you're tidying up, clearing out, or you just want to give your space a new look to start the year, Wayfair has everything you need, and it's all within your budget. You can look at the furniture on Wayfair, and there's a huge selection. It'll make it easy to find pieces that will fit your style and your budget. The best part, the hassle-free delivery, even for those larger items. Wayfair's site, So easy to navigate, and you'll find everything you need in no time because there's something for every style and every home, no matter your space, no matter your budget. And Wayfair makes it easy to tackle those home goals with endless inspiration for every space. And if you're in a time crunch, that free, hassle-free delivery is fast too. It'll be able to help you out. Give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head over to wayfair.com right now. That is WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Aiden Fink leads the team in offensive production. Arsenii Sergeev dealt with an injury at one point, but is now settling back in front of the goal. Eric, we knew that this was going to be more of an offensive team, and we said that there was NCAA tournament potential, but there was going to be a little bit of a learning curve. Guy Godowski's squad, relatively young this season. Certainly it helps when you have a superstar like Fink, but there were a lot of other counterparts that just don't have a lot of experience. So how did they put it all together in short?
It takes time. I mean, they were not playing bad hockey in the first half of the season. And I think that's where it's tough because you can start playing the what if game. And, the coaching staff doesn't do that. The players don't do that because that doesn't help you right now. But, those of us who have the ability to do that, you can look back and say, man, what if? What if they had a better start at Quinnipiac and weren't down 3-0 and then rallied to make it 3-2 and just couldn't get that tying goal? What if they beat Quinnipiac on the road? They'd be a top 15 team in the Pairwise right now. What if, game 2 against Minnesota to open up Big Ten play where they outshot Minnesota 28-12, but lost 1-0 on a goal with less than a minute to go? What if they win that game? Or what if it goes to overtime and they win that game? It makes a big difference. Yes, they had some struggles. They've also dealt with a lot of injuries. I mean, they have played very few games this season with a full complement of healthy players. And that's been hard. At times, they were playing great offensively, struggling defensively a bit, struggling to keep the puck out of the net. And then games where they were really strong defensively, but kind of lost the scoring touch. Here in this second half, really since the turn of the calendar, where they went to Wrigley and played that outdoor game against Notre Dame, and then went to South Bend and shut out the Irish, which is the first time they've ever done that. They are starting to play consistent hockey, and they're putting those elements of their game together. You have to be strong on special teams, your power play, your penalty kill. They're scoring over 3 goals per game in this stretch, which is important. They're getting outstanding goaltending from Sergeev. And their guys are being their guys. Aiden Fink, who's leading the country in points per game, and he's pushing some of those guys at the top to lead the nation in scoring and goals. He's having a phenomenal season. You have Charlie Serrato, who, up until this past weekend was over 60% on faceoffs. Penn State, for a long stretch, has been the number 1 faceoff team in the country. Those little things can add up during a game. Defensively, they're blocking a lot of shots, over 14 per game. So they're playing strong in front of Sergeev. And then you got a goalie who, just set a program record with 4 shutouts in a season. A couple guys had 3. He just shut out Wisconsin Friday night, 2-0 on the road. So if you get a guy like him who can get hot down the stretch like he is and play consistently, they're going to have a chance to win every night, especially when you have Fink and Lawback, Genev. Serrato, DeMarsico, and J.J. Webush have been an outstanding trio since they were put together in the first half of the season. So, and now also their depth guys are really embracing that role. Guys like Tyler Paquette, Carson Dick, Dane Dowiak, Keaton Peters, they've really been a driving force to the team's identity of playing a tough, physical brand of hockey, but also being able to score. There are some teams in the country where they want to defend. They want to be so strong defensively that you're not going to get more than 1 or 2 past them. And then they're like, okay, we just got to go score a couple goals. Penn State kind of wants to be the best of both worlds, being a tough physical team, but also being a team that can put 4 or 5 past you because they have such high-end talent. And now they're playing that consistent brand of hockey, and they're getting the results because of it. So I know it's easy for people to just look at the records and say, oh, this isn't a great hockey team. But you kind of have to watch the games and see how it's going down. 1, because the Big Ten is the toughest conference in college hockey. And 2, because the line between winning and losing in the Big Ten is so finite. It can be really hard. Like I said, you play an outstanding hockey game, maybe the best hockey game of the season at Minnesota. and you lose 1-0. That's hockey. It's tough. So all you can ask for is being confident and play your best hockey in January, February, and March. And from there, anything can happen. So I think that's what we're seeing right now.
Guy Godowski teams have typically been offensive oriented. They like to pepper the opposing goalie with shots as many times as they can get the puck after the net. So to hear them be a little more balanced and have the best of both worlds, I won't describe that as a complete overhaul, a complete change, but it does go against kind of what this team has been built around for these past few seasons. Now, granted, it does help when you have a superstar caliber player like an Aiden Fink, who's going to have a long career in hockey. And then, like you said, those complementary parts. So Eric, let's finish up with this. The X factor to continue to make this team better. Maybe it's one player, maybe it's a scheme. I think defensively is the key here, because we knew that they were going to have a lot of you could trust their offense, and it was the defense that was going to be lagging behind until it caught up. As you mentioned, the balance. So is it continuing to focus on the defense and make sure that's right because the offense will take care of itself? Or is there another player that, hey, if you get him back in the lineup from injury, or just get this young player to step up to complete this nucleus, what does it look like to make Penn State, to put Penn State at its best going into the postseason?
Really, the word is just consistency. They have figured out a lot and what makes them successful and what doesn't. And again, hockey's kind of tough where there's so many factors in a game that are just uncontrollable. Guy always says, you're playing a game where you have referees, goaltenders, and rubber pucks. Anything can happen, and you just have to stay kind of within yourself. You can't get too high, you can't get too low, and that's really like the mentality of hockey is so important, and that's really the one thing the team has worked so hard on since the beginning of the season, because they have a lot of young players, a lot of new players. You don't really know it until you go through it. So their mentality, and guys have talked about it in the media sessions, their mentality is just so much better now than it was in October and November, where if you're hitting a down stretch in a game, it's not sinking too low or reacting too much to it. Just being confident that, hey, let's go keep playing our game. And our game is a winning brand of hockey, so we can get the job done. And that's why you've seen some third period rallies down this stretch here, and you've seen them put the puck in the back of the net. You've seen them be strong defensively. So look, they're not going to get anywhere without Arsenii Sergeev playing great in net, which is what he's doing. Like I said, if he's playing like that, they're going to have a chance to win against anyone in the country, without a doubt. Look, he went toe-to-toe against Trey Augustine, and that was a game that Penn State took in a shootout. So RC has everything in him to get that job done. You have a senior captain defenseman, Simon Mack, who is playing just unreal hockey right now. His freshman partner, Cade Christensen, just scored his first goal in Game 2 against Wisconsin. They're Penn State's top player. They eat a lot of minutes. They're going to be very important. But your depth guys have to be really strong as well. So, when they're getting goal scoring from those top six, and they're getting depth play and identity play from their other six forwards in the lineup, they can play a complete hockey game. Doesn't mean you're going to play a perfect 60 minutes. It's really hard to play a perfect hockey game. But if they can put enough things together over the course of 60 minutes, they have a great chance. So that's what they're looking to do Friday night against Notre Dame. They're taking it one game at a time. But I know based on some of the crowds we've seen the past few home series, this is going to be a rocking weekend in Pagula. You don't want to miss it. Then they'll finish out with Minnesota in 2 weeks after going to Michigan State. And look, home ice isn't out of the question in the Big Ten tournament now. Depending on how this weekend goes and how Michigan does against Minnesota, they're not out of it now, which is a pretty remarkable thing to say here in February, because in January it was looking like they're playing for 6th or 7th. So the team is very, very happy, confident, but certainly not complacent right now.
4 points behind Wisconsin, 24-20, 8 points behind Michigan at 28. So Penn State, like you said, uphill battle, but they can certainly do it, and it's within the realm of possibility with 6 games left, especially with a road series that can certainly help them out, albeit against the number 2 Michigan State team. But they got Notre Dame first, home this weekend, Friday and Saturday the 14th and 15th. be there or be square. I mean, I think it'll be an absolutely incredible atmosphere. Eric Ohlsen will be on the call for that one as a color commentator next to Brian Tripp, the voice of Penn State men's hockey. Eric, thank you so much for the time, and thank you for checking out this episode of Locked On Nittany Lions. If you have any comments that you want to contribute to the conversation, let us know down in the comments section what you think of this Penn State men's hockey team. And as I said before, Eric, I really appreciate the time and the insight, the analysis around this Nittany Lions Guy Gadowski squad.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. It's a fun time to be watching hockey right now.
And as always, thank you so much for checking out this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions and making us your first listen and watch every single day. For your second listen and watch, check out Locked On Big Ten with host Craig Sheeman. Craig puts the Big Ten first when other people seem to overlook it. All 18 schools covering them in depth. That's why it's called Locked On Big Ten. You can find that on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day.